Well, hello gardeners, welcome back. So today's video is going to happen here in my front yard of Vero Beach, Florida, zone 10A, and we are going to talk about some rare beauties out there, some rare, awesome, gorgeous palm trees that you don't kind of run across very often, but once you do, you just can't mistake them from anything else. They're one of those palms that you have a guest walking through, you're like, what is that? That is so cool, so unique, so fun. If you've got that special spot in your garden and you're looking for a unique palm to work into that spot, we're going to talk about a handful of my absolute favorite. But before we get started, please hit that like, that subscribe button, that little notification bell. We post every single weekend. If this is your jam, if this is your vibe, and you kind of like to talk about plants, trees, gardening, and the combination of it all. Anyway, let's get started, you guys. This is the very first palm tree, the very first exotic palm that I wanted to mention. It's right in my front entranceway, so I wanted something that had like a real wow factor. This is right by my front door. I wanted something that was really like just giant fronds, really had some impact, but grew really slow, so that way I can enjoy it for years and years and years before I have to start putting material underneath of it to kind of, you know, layer up on this palm. This is the Fiji palm. I absolutely love this giant frond, you guys. I mean, I just feel like I'm in Hawaii every time I see this palm frond. It is fabulous. It has a little bit of the section opening here, which is great for the wind, but overall you can see it's just like a big old giant fan underneath, and the structure is so fabulous. Now, this is zone 10A. They do fabulous all the way down south from the Keys all the way up in kind of that Palm Bay area. That's kind of where our break is, because when you hit temperatures like 32 degrees, which I know that a few times a year it gets down to that over in the Melbourne area, they can burn. Now, I will show you this one leaf over here. This is an old growth leaf. This is from this past season's burn. So you can kind of see this is what happens. They'll kind of speckle like this when they're not happy with the cold temperatures. I didn't cover this tree, but I had so much foliage down below, so I really felt like it was covered enough, but boy, was I wrong. And we did not get into super freezing temps. I mean, I think we got down to 32 twice, and it was for just a few hours. So anything north of us, this is probably not the palm for you unless you plan to pot it and cover it or bring it in during the season, and totally worth that, you guys, because it grows so slow. It holds this kind of frond canopy for years and years and years. So this tree is probably close to 9 to 10 years old, and you can tell that it is not grown much. You need something that's going to offer like a powerful punch in a garden and kind of give you that exotic look. This is a fabulous one to do. Pair it with something above it like a coconut palm or big kind of heavier frond leaves, and wow, what a contrast those two make. So it's definitely worth using in your garden. So this guy grows about 6 inches to max a foot a year. It really is a slow grower. You can get it at a 3-gallon pot size, so do not feel like you've got to start super big on these guys. I started with a 25-gallon size here, and it's been in the ground for about 5 years now, so it really hasn't grown much at all considering. This is not a self-cleaning palm, so you do have to hand trim. So I use my loppers in here, and you trim as close to the base as you can get. So you just trim right in here at the base here, lop it like so, and then these are fabulous. If you got big vases outside, you can use these and keep them in those vases. They'll stay a nice green for a good 6 weeks, and then even when they turn brown, I think they're a phenomenal like little architectural structure. So I've got some vases that I love to incorporate those in, mix them with some heliconias, and you have such a beautiful, or the tops of the antilus back there, and you've got a beautiful tropical Hawaii kind of cluster. All right, you guys, so my next favorite rare palm is one of my favorite palms that I have. Out of all the palms in my whole garden, it is my top favorite palm. It is absolutely stunning. It is the Carpoxylon palm. It's this beautiful gal right here behind me. She is absolutely stunning with her big crown shaft. They're very compact and vertical, and then right along the edges, they just do that very elegant curl. It's almost like she's curtsying for us. I absolutely love her. I love the way she pops up just above that roof line there, and you can really see that canopy coverage just kind of do that nice gentle curl, nice and compact with a beautiful head to it, and then a gorgeous dark green trunk that goes to a kind of a nice cane roped base, which is beautiful. At the very bottom, it opens up like it looks like an elephant's foot, the way it opens up. It reminds me like a ponytail palm base, just the way it gets chunky and fat. I have 3 of them in my garden. These 2 guys in my garden, they're around the 10-foot range when they were put in because I know they grow super, super slow. However, they have now finally gotten some size and they've grown exceptionally slow is the only negative I would say to this particular tree. But if you've got a spot in your yard that you need it to stay rather small for a long period of time, this is your tree. This is a focal point tree. Definitely is not one to be confused with many other palms, especially, I hope it comes across this way. Like when I'm looking at it first on like this, there is just, it kind of has a little bit of a King Alexander mixed with a royal palm, mixed with a bottle palm, and I don't know what the canopy looks like. It's just got a mix of all of my favorite palm trees all in one. So it's definitely one to find. You can definitely find it here in Palm City, Stuart, Florida, Homestead. Plant Ant, it is a fantastic resource to find some of these exotic palm trees. You can also see what nurseries in your area carry it, or if they can bring it in, because these are definitely, you know, if you're gonna have that one little area to incorporate a tree, this is one to incorporate. So I hope you guys like it, and it can handle some light temperatures. It really doesn't like freeze temperatures, so anything from 32 degrees and warmer, ideal. Growth habits, super, super slow. Trimming is self-cleaning, so however, it's not a heavy canopy frond base, so I normally just actually trim them myself when they kind of start to get brown a little bit, because it does take a long time for them to release their frond. And then overall growth, I mean, they will get all the way to that 27 to 30 foot range, but it will take years and years and years and years for that to happen because they're such slow growing trees. But they're definitely something to consider for that perfect spot in your garden, because they are one of those unique species that just stand on their own. So let's go to the next one. All right, you guys, so my next rare find is the Penanga coronada. This is a small palm, very, very vertical. It has multi-trunks to it, sometimes called the ivory cane palm, which is because they have those beautiful white canes as they start to get some size to it, but grow very, very vertical and very compact. And the leaf is kind of like on top of one another. So it's one leaf and then you see another leaf, and it's just really, really vertical and really small. Unlike a palm that somebody might consider similar to it and looks like the Eureka palm or cat palm or something like that, but those palms have a tendency to really widen out, really open up. This is more of a vertical palm. So it is actually related to the lipstick palm. It has a very similar look. However, it doesn't have those beautiful red crown shafts like the lipstick palm. I would obviously totally have that palm in my garden, but I just cannot commit to a palm that pricey that really can't handle any kind of cold temps, because we do get them. As a good gardening parent that I am, I can't say that I'm out here covering things all the time. I mean, I might have some hot spots where I'm willing to cover, but I definitely can't do that with a lot of my exotics. So I have to make sure that the palms that I do choose can handle our temperatures really well, and that are also going to work for our space long term. So this is kind of a look-alike version of that without the red cane. But what I do like about this palm, if you guys have a courtyard space or a nice little nook space or an area along a wall or maybe near a screen room that you kind of want to do some cool impacts, this is a great palm that stays kind of narrow and really kind of crowns on itself. So you'll have a leaf on leaf, and it really can be nice and vertical, and you can keep it that way. You can fit like a lot of palm in a little space because it's not going to widen out or outgrow that space. So very, very narrow. Trimming on it is super, super easy. You can see that it'll have a yellow leaf or a brown leaf, and when that happens, all you do is you take your loppers or your nippers, and then you just clip as close to the palm base as possible. So right here along this edge is kind of where you want to clip. Hopefully you can get a decent idea to see what one clump looks like as they grow together. They still stay real, real vertical and work in a space. The growth habit on this guy is super slow because I've got a lot of large variety palms behind me. As you guys who, especially those of you guys who are new to Florida, you'll figure out in the palm world, in the plant world, one of the first questions that you ask all the garden centers is, how big does it get and how fast does it get there? Because you know, you can like go to bed one night and you put a traveler's palm in, it's only this high, and then you wake up the next morning and it's this high. That's how a lot of our palms are in Florida. They go from mini monsters to big monsters pretty fast. So when you can find a tree that is a cool looking tree and a small size, and it stays that way for a long length of time, to me that is a winner chicken dinner in my palm garden variety book any single day. So Penanga coronada is totally one of those perfect palms to do. It loves the 8-2-12 palm gain fertilizer. Hit it every single quarter. I hit it in March, June, September, and then December if it's nice and warm still in December, which it usually is in our area. Hit get it that way, and you won't have problems with pests or bugs or the cold temps. It'll just be a strong, strong tree. That's what I do with all my tropicals, and it just takes the cake, you guys. So yeah, so this is one of my favorites. So let's hop into the next one. All right, you guys, so now for Bryce's favorite palm in our whole yard, which is the Copernicia fallaensis. This palm is obviously one of those big, giant, fan-like, beautiful species, very, very vertical, very upright. Some people will confuse it with a Bismarck palm, which is also beautiful. However, this one is more compact. So at the trunk, it stays nice and compact at the center. And instead of it widening out at the canopy from the trunk, it actually stays real vertical to the trunk itself. So it stays compact and upright. And the fans almost interlock with each other as it starts to open up and bloom. And that doesn't change even when it gets large. Now, this tree will get large. It does take a long time, unlike the Bismarck palm, but you can kind of see the pattern that we're going with. Some of these exotic, some of these rare palm trees grow exceptionally slow, which I think is part of what makes them rare, because they're harder to find in the nurseries because of that reason. But they are well worth it, because if you've got tons of varieties of beautiful, fast growing palms, and you have key areas that you kind of want small palms with a dynamic look, and you want them to stay that way for a long period of time, check out some of these palms in this video, because these are things that have been in my garden for years and years and years, and then you can kind of see the things around them have really grown up while these guys have stayed nice and compact and small. Now, the trimming on this guy is about the same as it would be a Bismarck. You know, you take those old fronds, it's not self-cleaning, you lop them off, and they can get kind of large in size. So as they get bigger, you're gonna have to have a maintenance company come through and probably trim those as the tree gets taller. This tree will grow all the way up into the 30-foot range, so it will get some size, but I'll be long and gone by the time this guy gets that way, because they grow so darn slow. He's been in the ground for about 4 years and probably has put maybe 1.5 feet on. So you can really see how long it takes for them to get some decent size to them. But there is one thing I wanted to add on this particular palm. Because those fans are so compact and tight, they can act as kind of like wind sails in the garden. So if we're getting a hurricane, or if we're getting some heavy storms or a rainy season, then you want to make sure that you do strap that tree up nice and tight. So this tree's been in the ground a very long time, like I said, but I still have straps on it to help support it, because that canopy is almost taller than the trunk itself. So it's a little top heavy, which makes it kind of a unique look to a palm, because it's normally the opposite, more trunk than canopy. But because this one is situated that way, it can actually blow over or lay crooked very, very easy. So definitely when you put this guy in young, stake him nice and tight with 4 stakes with some rebar in the ground, and then he'll be good to go. Palm fertilizer is super important with this guy, because of course we want that trunk, we want him to be a solid base, a solid tree, and they're rather expensive. So you want to make sure that, you know, you give it everything it needs to really become a dense and heavily rooted tree in a garden. This is a perfect palm for a centerpiece, kind of like how I have it shown here. All right, you guys, so for the next rare find is the Pindo palm, or also known as the jelly palm. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, that's not really a rare palm species, and it's technically not, but what does make this one a little bit more unique is its multi-trunk to it. This is a triple version. They come in triple, double, and of course they come in singles, and I've seen them in quads. I've just not had a chance to plant a quad yet. So, but this triple variety is just so fabulous, so unique. I think that it's the perfect tree for the corner of my property. This is coming right to the side yard entrance of my garden, so it really does a great job of kind of anchoring the edge of my property line. This is a tree that you see when you first pull right into my driveway, so I think it's just fabulous for that little, you know, that anchor spot in the garden. I'm going to kind of go into the middle here to show you, give you a good point of reference about how big this tree is. So this is the center of this tree that I'm standing into. This is the mounding area. So these trunks themselves kind of compete with each other, so it causes the tree canopy to be a little bit more vertical, a little bit more straight, and then a little curl at the edges of the palm fronds, where if it's a single, you'll notice that they'll be a little bit more wider, a little bit more open, more like a bouquet style, where it's tight in the middle and then really fans out. But because of this particular variety, they're more vertical and more linear this way, which I think to me makes it have a whole nother look. They have a silverish tone to the leaf, which I think is really cool, especially when you have a lot of greenery in your garden. That bright silver tone really shows off in a palm tree, I think, kind of like the Copernicia fallaensis that we just looked at. This is also not a self-cleaning tree. It is one you will have to cut. So you will have to cut this tree, some of the brown or older limbs. I've got a few of those in here that I have to actually get in here and do. You can trim it with, you know, your loppers, or you can use a saw and kind of cut it at an angle here to kind of give it more of an interesting trunk base, kind of cutting those boots at an angle, giving you kind of more of that diamond cut type of look. But they grow so slow that you really only have to do that at the most. I mean, you could do it once a year. You could probably do it once every 2 years because it's just such a slow growing tree. So I rarely have to get in here and cut on this tree. I almost forget about it. Just like you see here, I've got 1 or 2 brown fronds that probably need to go because I always forget to cut it. So, but yeah, this is a great focal point tree. It grows about a foot a year if you're lucky, in really good condition. So super slow growing, stays where you put it, nice anchor point, and definitely a tree worth having. This guy can handle freezing temperatures. I have seen him planted all the way into Georgia, into the South Carolina area. So for you guys who are in those tough zones, Pindo palms are ideal for that. And so are the next 2 palms that we're gonna talk about. But now for the next 2 trees in today's video. I do not have them yet in my garden. I'm sure I'm gonna find a spot for them somewhere, but I don't have them yet. But I've definitely thought they were worth mentioning and sharing with you guys because they're both more on the cold tolerant side, but they're actually at one of the nurseries that we actually purchased from. So we're gonna hop on over there and share those with you guys. So let's go. All right, you guys, so we're here at the nursery, and this is one of my favorites amongst many of my other favorites. This is the Kentiopsis palm. It is a gorgeous palm tree. Now, I tend to get them in this kind of size. They're commonly found this size, whether they're 30 gallon, 45 gallon, or in the ground, just like you see here. Technically a self-cleaning palm, but I will tell you most of the time you will have to trim that frond. It will be self-cleaning after a long period of time, after the weight on that limb tends to put pressure to release, but that tends to take a long time. So I would say most of the time I tell my clients to just go ahead and cut that limb when it turns brown. But overall, I think this is a very cool tree. It has a beautiful upright canopy to it. When you get some size, that canopy really opens up. Also keeps the stiffness to those fronds. So it's not a real heavily wavy or soft, lacy kind of tree like the next tree we're gonna talk about. This one is more vertical, more dynamic, more upright. So I think that that's what makes it look so exotic, because everybody's like, that's not an Alexander, is it? Or what is that? The leaf itself on this tree is just so magnanimous. It's so big and so broad. For such a small frame tree, I think it makes it look so cool in a garden. Now you can plant these like you would plant a foxtail palm and stagger them in just kind of like rows in the garden, and they can kind of really give you that palm row kind of feel because of just what kind of stature they bring to the garden. What's nice about this particular tree for such an exotic palm, it is very cold tolerant. So this can get into the 20s, which is ideal for any of us Floridians. You know, if you want to incorporate some palms a little bit north of us, then this is an ideal palm to do. Now it doesn't like it for any length of time, so it can't be like in Georgia or the Carolinas, but your cutoff point, I would say, would be, you know, just North Florida. So this is a great palm to have if you don't want something growing too fast. This palm's about 1.5 to 2 foot a year, so a little faster than the last few palms that we talked about, but overall it is a slow grower. It loves palm gain. So I use 8-12 palm gain fertilizer on this guy 4 times a year. It's gonna help keep these leaves nice and dark green. You can tell in this particular setting that it's in the ground and it needs a shot of fertilizer. It has a little bit of potassium deficiency, so hitting it with some granular this time of year is going to be ideal for the grower. If you guys find it in a potted location or at a nursery in a pot, 35 or 45 gallon, don't hesitate to get it, because they're usually gorgeous and dark green in a pot because it's really contained, and I know that they do their great job of fertilizing them. But this is a fabulous tree to incorporate. It is middle of the row when it comes to growth, and it will get nice and tall, so definitely leave some room for that. But it's got a gorgeous canopy to it, nice upright strong fronds that really hold their own. But now let's pop over right across the hall from here and look at the next tree in the grouping. This is the mule palm. This tree itself is absolutely just a fun tree to work with. It is a cross between the Pindo palm and the queen palm. Now the queen palm has had its share of troubles with it's had fungus issues, it's had problems over the last few years, so it's definitely not a palm that I incorporate anymore into gardens. However, this cross species has really taken to its own and makes a fabulous this intermediate tree. So if you're looking for long-term coverage, a big frond canopy with a short trunk, this is a great tree to do that. What it carries over from one of its parents, which is the Pindo palm, is that short base and that bigger frond canopy. So you can kind of see that's exactly what this guy does. It has a short bulbous base on the bottom, and then most of the tree itself is frond. Now that is going to carry over through most of its life. So it will continue to get bigger as most palm trees do, but it also the ratio would be more frond to trunk, which is ideal for a lot of areas, especially those of you guys who have view lines of water and you kind of want to keep that understory a little bit clean, but you need something really dense and full above to kind of block out those roof lines. I get a lot of those questions in the comments. So this is an ideal tree to do that with. You know, get one that has about 4 foot of clearance if you can, and then you have that canopy and it stays that way for a long period of time. This tree grows 6 foot to max 1 foot per year. So very, very slow growing tree in general. It can be a tree that gets easily deficient if your soil is not very good. So you definitely want to use some good compost with it and then keep it fertilized regularly with that 8-2-12, and it's going to be fabulous. It has a very, very dark green coloring to the leaf and very cold tolerant. So this is like its parent, which is the queen palm and the Pindo palm, both of them cold tolerant palms. So it really allows you to plant these guys all the way up into the Georgia area. I mean, these can handle into the 20s and take it like a champ. And they're a great intermediate tree to incorporate with some of your taller palm trees. So they can handle our heat as far south as the Keys, all the way up north to North Florida and beyond. So definitely a good palm to work with. It is technically hitting my rare palm species because they are hard to find. Even for instance, where we are here in Vero Beach, we've got 1 row of these that are remaining, and this is a huge palm nursery with thousands of foxtails and queens and other varieties of species of trees. But the Kentiopsis and the mule palms, we actually only have 1 row left, and there's barely any left that are available in this 2 particular rows. So you're going to see that across nurseries that you look for. And I think the common denominator is the slow growth of these rare trees, obviously the dynamic fronds that they offer, their ability to handle some of the colder temps, the dwarfism on many of them where they just kind of over time just kind of stay more compact and low to the ground. Those are all really, really big bonuses in our palm world. So that makes them a little bit more exotic, a little harder to find because it takes them a little bit more time to get established, whether it's a grower or a nursery that you're picking them up. It takes some time to cultivate them and get to them to where they're up for sale and ready and looking their best. So I think that's kind of what classifies these last 2 as more of your rare finds. So you guys will have to let me know if there are any palms that you've incorporated into your space that you just think, oh my gosh, this is rare and this is fun and it's done fabulous. Stick in the comments down below because we would love to hear about it, and I'm sure our other members of this community would love to hear more suggestions in that field. However, if you guys are having trouble finding some of these plants and you are looking to have some of this work done for you, located, sourced, and installed, then reach out to your girl. You know, I am a landscape designer. We work along the Treasure and Space Coast. However, for those of you guys who are outside of that area, we do have a design-only service, and then now we also have a virtual consultation for just like specific areas that you might have or need a little bit of help for in your garden. So those of you guys who are sourcing this material and you're looking to incorporate some of these rare finds into your garden, check out Plant Ant. It has been a fantastic resource. We suggest it to all of our clients. This is not a sponsored video. I just love that's an option. You can log in, put in your zip code, put in the plant of choice, and find out what nursery nearby might have it. So you can incorporate some of these beauties and not have to hit the road and spend your gas, find them the hard way. So hopefully that does help. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, I don't know where you've been, please subscribe because you will see us every single weekend in your feed. We post every single weekend with content just like this, and we will pop in a video over here of our last garden tour, which was a beautiful butterfly garden. So if you like those happily winged friends, you might really enjoy this video. Take care.